Good morning, everybody. I don't know whether I should thank the organizers for having me invited to give this talk or think that I am their worst enemy, because this is not easy to try to summarize what are the perspectives of BCIs for the general population. And when I say general population, I don't mean studies involving able-bodied subjects, but really what can we do with BCIs for these people. So where is the button? It is this one? This one? So which one should I?
This one to go.
Okay, very good. Very good, thank you. So before starting, after having said that it is not easy, my job, I hope I will get to the point. The second thing is that by definition, I'm biased in the selection of works that I have been choosing. So please, if you are not among those who are working on those lines, don't take it personally. Is that I had to make a selection, bias selection, in order to illustrate the points that I want to illustrate. So let's start with some trends and keywords that may appear not only in the scientific literature, but also in the popular media that label everything these days as BCI. So we have neuromarketing, neuroergonomics, neurofeedback, gaming, cognitive training, especially for elderly, sport training, visual search, traffic controllers, biometrics, car driving, and now even space. So and now the question is, well, really can a BCI do something for all these? And in order for me to prune a little bit and to put some order into all these keywords and trends, I want to come back to the original definition of what a BCI is. Not that I will explain that. The only point that I want to make here is that a BCI is a closed-loop system. So, no feedback to the user. If the brain activity that we are monitoring, the coding, doesn't have an effect onto the interaction task or the general task that the subject is doing, this is not a BCI. This is very useful for other purposes, but this is not a BCI. Second consideration is that if we are talking about BCIs for the general population, I cannot ask you not to use your normal afferent pathways. What I want eventually is to offer you an additional channel to your normal afferent pathways. And this is where the hybrid BCIs come into, because we want you to keep using your body, because if you don't use your body, your brain will suffer. So you better keep using your body. And final thing, since we are talking about practical applications eventually, we will need also to incorporate a lot of intelligence in our systems. But I will not be talking today through shared control, only to say that despite what John was saying today, I believe that with today's technology, with today's BCI, we can have someone going to pass the test of the Grand Canyon. If he fails, live hard, die hard. Okay? Okay, so let's start with a kind of taxonomy of all the works that I have been scanning through. And the first big chunk of works come under what I may say is human-computer conference. Can humans and computers work together so as to do something that none of them can solve completely? The second big chunk is training. How can we use BCIs for improving our capabilities, motor or cognitive? Third one is biometrics. Okay, and there is a lot of research going there and a lot of practical interest in incorporating these brain signatures as part of our biometric code to access critical information. And finally is enhanced interaction. Here it is where essentially people need to keep doing things and get something more out of what they are doing. So let's start going through. But before, I want to make a difference of what we are decoding for what purpose. So with a BCI, a normal BCI loop, it's decoding commands because we are decoding the intention of the person and we are translating that into some kind of action, no matter what. However, for the general population, it is true, here I agree with John, that the reliability of our system is not that good as to replace or even be combined in the sense of sensor fusion or command fusion with normal pathways. So we have a big problem here if we want to use the normal BCI approach to enhance the normal behavior of people. There is yet another way to use a BCI, that is the fact that after the subject is receiving feedback plus processing the whole context in which this interaction is taking place, now the subject has to do a lot of cognitive decisions, perceptual decisions. And it is here where I think, as I will try to convey you, where most of the work are being done. And disclaimer, this is not a passive BCI, don't take it wrong, because here the output of the person, brain activity, is used immediately to active effect on the interaction process, on the interaction dynamics that this person is engaged into. Okay, human-computer confluence. I will be reviewing essentially two kinds of things. One is a very popular thing, is visual search. How can computers help humans to find the proper information, and the other way around? How can human users, help computers to scan a massive amount of information out there? And the second one is estimating the workload, vigilance, whatever cognitive state is your favorite one, because one we are capable to estimate in real time, which is the cognitive state of the person. Then we can adapt the dynamics in the mid or long term of this interaction to take into account this cognitive state of the person. So, first example of visual search is rapid serial visual presentation that has been essentially championed by Paul Sajja in his lab over many studies. And in order to illustrate this, let me use one of our works where essentially the person will be first presented with a subset of all the images that can be the target images. Imagine your photo collection, or the photo collection not of only of you, of all your network. And based on this limited amount of information and using the detection of the saliency of the images, using a P300 that is a probabilistic thing, get images is only a small proportion of all what can be contained in your database. Then, based on that first labeling, despite the fact that most probably this labeling is very poor, we will pass it to computer vision algorithms that will try to find which are the relationships between those selected images, random selected, well, it is not random selected images because they are better than random, so that the system will propose you another set of images where they will try to say, okay, I have an hypothesis, what kind of images you are interested into, so I will present you a proportion of images where again this probabilistic rule is maintained, and this will go on several times until the system, the computer system, will think that it has a good answer to what is the kind of image it is searching for, and will present the images. Okay? This has been recently extended to active visual search, in the sense that in the classical rapid serial visual presentation paradigm, you are in front of the screen and you are bombarded with images. Whereas in natural sets, we need to scan our 3D environment searching for the critical piece of information. And this, again, has been done in Paul Sajja's lab and also by Benjamin Bankers and Maria Muskumlich recently. Second kind of ways in which we can do this human-computer confluence. And I want to pick up here a work by Fabian Lott, very recent work, that I think is illustrating very well what I want to convey. In this work, the goal is to see whether these two people have how well their physiological parameters, and here I am talking about the hybrid BCI because it is not only EEG, it is heart rate, whatever other physiological signals you are recording, are synchronized so that they can see their state either in the brain, as you can see over here, or in other parts of the body. And in this piece of information, they are seeing how well they are synchronized, and the goal is to get them synchronized or decouple, whatever the goal is. And so this is also illustrating something that is these days attracting a lot of attention, that is hyperscanning, how you can measure signals, in particular brain signals of different people, and see how they are doing things together. And then they are putting that to work in museums for the general population. But this is not only what is part of this. There are very few works, this is impressive, despite the huge literature saying we have found the ultimate correlate for whatever, there are not real closed loop application systems. So one that was done actually 15 years ago was this one, where they were measuring the workload of the person and closed loop informing about the workload, and they were showing some properties of this interaction. Also, Benjamin's lab was doing something along those lines, even if they were only estimating the workload, but not really closing the loop. But I mean, this is only one step ahead, and this is a nice recent review about that, but only putting forward the possibilities of using these kind of things, but nothing has been done much. So alertness also, here McKay and Young in University of California, San Diego, they have been promoting that for many years, but I have not been capable to find any real closed loop application of that. They have demonstrated many times the online properties of these systems based on EEG to track the alertness of different operators. So this should be feasible, even if I have not seen it yet. Let's move to the second category, training. And here we can use BCIs for cognitive training, improving memory, improving cognitive control, and this is essential for elderly people because this is a problem of our society, a problem or I don't know what. In any case, we are living longer and we want to keep our cognitive capabilities up as long as possible. The second trend is on motor sports. Can we not only use the classical motor rehearsal that athletes do all the time in order to improve our performance, but even do more than simply repeating again and again the same task? So let's start with cognitive training. This is a very recent work with real-time fMRI. So the goal here is to detect attentional lapses because the subject has to attend to some task, and it is clear that you cannot sustain the same level of performance for too long. So as they predict that the subject is not attending correctly to the task, they are actually making the task more difficult so that the subject puts more attention into the task, because afterwards, if they put attention, the task will become easier, and they can, in a given sense, find their comfort zone. And what you can see over here is that this is a control study where they see that the initial performance is already quite high for the two groups, the feedback group, where they are providing real-time fMRI feedback to the subject and modifying the level of difficulty of the task. And this is a control group. So how it goes, they run the normal task in day 0. Then they go to train in the case of the feedback group, or do nothing. And the following day, they repeat the task again. Okay, so that they are looking at the rather long-term effect of whatever this feedback is doing on people. And you can see that actually this group improves significantly in the performance because of this feedback training that they receive, whereas this group didn't improve statistically. Now I will make an exception to my own rules, because I want to talk about a study that is not, as far as I know, yet involving any BCI, but I think that this is opening a huge avenue, because this is the cognitive control in elderly people. So this is done in the laboratory of Gatzaley in University of California, San Francisco. What you can see over here, this is the normal decline of cognitive control through age. And surprisingly enough, even when we are in our peak performance, or so we believe, in our 20s, we are already declining cognitive control. And this despite all what our kids are saying us, no, I can do video gaming and Facebook and 3 conversations and I can still study. Don't worry, Daddy. I am performing very well. Okay. I should, by the way, show this data to my kids. Anyway, you see the decline over here. And now the important thing that I will summarize dramatically is that they have this NeuroRacer game, and they had a population of 46 older adults. So some of them, one third, this multitasking through the NeuroRacer gaming. Some of them did only one modality of training, so single training mode, where essentially they were only focusing on one aspect of cognitive control, but not on the whole aspect of cognitive control. And the third group was doing nothing, essentially. Now, before and after, and actually, before and after was immediately before they ran a series of tests in order to evaluate the level of cognitive control that they had, and this is their performance for the 3 populations. So essentially, they were at this point over here. So by the way, they were all in their 60s, 70s, and older. Now, they play the game, NeuroRacer game, 1 hour per day, 3 days per week, over 4 weeks. And then you can see the huge jump in performance. They were performing as well as when they were teenagers, okay? So over here. Whereas none of the other groups substantially. And more impressively, 6 months after they had finished to play with the NeuroRacer, they maintained the performance. And so what? You may say, what has this to do with BCI? Well, this is where it comes. They were also monitoring and recording their brain activity. And then this is the average pattern of activity in older adults as compared to younger adults. So this is our target over here, okay? And now you can see how the brain patterns of the multitasking training has changed, becoming even stronger than this one as compared to the other. So here it is quite similar, but you saw that this doesn't translate in any actual improvement in the measures of control. Okay, and these, we know that all these kind of patterns that we have over here, that essentially is the medial frontal theta, are correlated with working memory, sustained attention, interference resolution, and counting. Now the question is, what if, in addition to do this NeuroRacer game, we incorporate a BCI component so that the game is driven by the target patterns of activity that we want to have for people? Is this still enhancing performance? Is this making this performance sustained for even longer? These are one of the directions that I believe a BCI for the general population, for the elderly in particular, has a huge future. Other works that have been done in closed loop is memory and attention using a BCI, improving the memory and attention in elderly people, and also using BCI training in order to improve memory. So in the second case, this is the work of Javier Mínguez in Zaragoza, Spain. Let's go to motor training, and have picked up this work over here that illustrates quite well. This is Dennis McFarlane and John Golpo who did it, and this is quite intriguing, the way they did it. So what they did is, this is a joystick task that they need to do, so that it appears, and at this moment they need to reach as fast as they can for the target, okay? And then if they did, then the new trial will start. The interesting thing is that they will find sensory motor rhythms, features in the sensory motor rhythms that correlate with performance during the preparation period. So they need still to do, but they will using this preparatory activity in the sensory motor rhythms. And now, after they have trained for a certain number of trials and sessions to improve the performance of the BCI sensory motor rhythm is, so they were doing only the BCI, they come to see which is the effect of this in the normal motor performance of these people. But now, the appearance of the target will be modulated, will be triggered by the fact that the subject is generating the rhythms that they were trained to produce. And to make a very long story short, the performance was improved. And they were reporting an incredible number of factors that in a slide I cannot put because otherwise you will be lost in there. But believe me, they were improving. Now, if this is happening for a task that in principle is not the classical rehearsal, because people were rehearsing mentally this joystick thing, we may think also that this could be used also and useful for sports. There is a very old paper over here where they were using also some correlates of archery performance, and they were providing in real time feedback to the archer in order to trigger the shoot, and they were improving. But surprisingly, there is nothing from that work on. Nothing has been done during this time. I don't know why. Still, a number of us are working on this idea of trying to find correlates to improve sports performance, not only in athletics, but also for aficionados, I would say. And this is a nice review of all what can be done in real time for improving sports performance. Biometrics. So here the idea is to generate patterns of activity that are individual, unique to you, and use that as your personalized key. In a given sense, this personalized key will be, it is impossible to steal, because as soon as you are forced to generate that state, we all know that stress is the best enemy of a BCI, so you will fail to generate that state, and the robbery cannot be committed, the story says. Okay, so what kind of signatures have been people exploring? So resting state, P300, sensory motor rhythms, whatever we are doing in BCI, people are exploring in order to incorporate that into the biometrics. Now let me come to the last block, enhanced interaction, and here it is essential that people keep over behavior. They will keep doing whatever they are doing, and now we can compensate for eventual situational disabilities, things of space, lack of gravity, astronauts, so that they can, while they are trying to do whatever movement they want to do, also decode the motor correlates of the action that they want to do and eventually improve that action. Noisy environments, where eventually we could have a speech. This is a far-reaching goal because our BCI-based speech decoders are not yet at the level of even thinking of that, but this could be a possibility. And more recently, the main one big thing that is going on also because the car industry is very interested into that. They are funding very generously, at least in my case, this kind of research is car driving. Can a smart car behavior fit the driver's intention? So let me explain you very quickly, 1 minute, the idea. We have these smart cards where they can assist the drivers in a number of ways by taking into account whatever behavior as measured by the steering wheel, the pedals, and other in-car sensors to sense whatever is the context of the car in order to help the driver. And the idea is to create on top of this normal behavioral channel other kind of physiological signals, in particular BCIs. So examples of that, emergency braking. Here also Benjamin's group has been leading the effort. And recently also the group of Seong-won in Korea University in Seoul is working on that in simulated cars and real cars. So in the case of real cars, Benjamin and his team demonstrated how it is possible to detect the fact that the lead car is braking, and we can recognize that sufficient to intervene from the analysis of EEG signals. And in the case of Seong-won's Lee group, they were moving beyond simply braking or not braking because the other car in front of you is braking, to the fact that there are many kind of situations that may require a real brake, sharp brake, or others that actually you will see essentially the same kind of a stimuli, but you will not require to brake because this is braking in a parallel lane, not in your lane, so you can keep moving forward. And they show that it is possible to differentiate between the two. In our own work, we are using other kind of ideas. One of is anticipation to whether or not people will do some kind of actions, for example, pressing pedals in front of traffic lights. So what you have over here is a classical CMV paradigm. We see these classical CMV signatures over here well before the actual muscular the subject engaged in moving the legs in order to press the corresponding pedal, and we can decode that with a significant level of accuracy to do the implementation of that. Another example of the same idea is people are being in a highway and they decide self-paced voluntarily when to change lanes, and what you can see over here is that, again, that only when they are preparing to do the steering, this SCP potential develops in different and you can use that also to predict when they will be changing lane almost 500 milliseconds before. And at that point, all the security of the car can start up in order to help you do this lane change safely. A last example is the use of, even going further, the fact that car, in a way or another, will estimate which is your intention, but before executing or helping you to execute that intention, it will propose to you via some visual feedback what the car believes you want to do. And there we can use the decoding of the error bit potentials to confirm or reject those actions. Okay, so I will skip the space applications. What is the way forward? I think that whatever we have been saying today is applicable here. We will need better BCIs at large. But here we have two essential elements for BCIs to reach the general population. One is to develop a better theory, a better model of hybrid BCIs, because this is essential. As I have been saying during the whole talk, people need to keep having an over behavior. We want to top a brain channel that improves. Otherwise, this is useless. Second thing is that even if there is a lot of research on wearable and obtrusive BCIs, here it is essential. Otherwise, nobody will use it. So thank you very much for your attention. And now I can take any questions.